As you know from your reading and from our previous discussions, sociolinguistics is focused on describing the interaction between language and society, but society could mean various sizes of groups of people that form a social network, right? How do we define the society that we are researching in particular? As you know from your specific reading for this week, there are various terms that are used to name groups of people according to certain characteristics, as you see here on the screen: speech community, community of practice, and discourse community. Let's summarize these briefly, but of course you'll want to do the reading that's been recommended and do further reading in order to provide descriptions of these concepts for your first assessment for this module. Speech community, the most widely used term associated with Gumper, is here. He wrote it up this way, as you see in front of you. I'll just wait while you read it. And you can see that he's indicating that there's something that allows us to determine that this group of people are linguistically similar to one another, shared body of verbal signs, right? That they use language verbally in a similar way, and that they're set off from similar aggregates. They're set off from other groups. By aggregate, he means group, right? Set off from other groups because we see enough differences in their language usage. So there are speech communities, there's a speech community A and a speech community B. They can communicate with one another, right? They're speaking the same language in the case of, that we're talking about, of English, speaking the same language, but there are enough differences between the way they speak that we can hear someone talk and decide, she belongs more like with that group, or he belongs more with that group. There may be the variation between the groups, the significant differences, as Gumpertz calls them. Ward and Fuller say these may be differences in dialect. So dialect is, as you know, the collection of phonological, lexical, and grammatical variations that make up a particular speech type. Variation in dialect, variation in style, right? Stylistics and style in language means the analysis of choices that people make when they talk and the effect they have on the listeners. We'll talk more about that later, but you could be quite similar, speak quite similarly, two people, same accent, same grammar and so on, but one of them might speak using a lot of metaphors, and one of them might not use metaphors. That would be a stylistic difference, right? And then register, which you know concerns the field, tenor, and mode, right? So the variations in these three elements are those things that often contribute to our understanding of these people being different than those people linguistically, although having a shared language, but different enough that they seem to be different groups, or in this case, they're therefore termed speech communities. Each community shares certain linguistic norms, right? Norm, as you can see from the word, is quite easy to understand, but it is used a lot, that phrase, linguistic norm. What is the expected thing? It's not that we have to do that, but if I hear if I know someone is a certain type of speaker, he's British, she's from New Zealand, what have you, I'll have certain expectations about their linguistic norms. I will expect the accent to be like this. It doesn't have to be, but normally it would be. So speech community, groups of people united by characteristic linguistic behavior that separates them off from other groups who have their own characteristic linguistic behavior. A few extra terms that can be useful. Some speech communities are described as hard-shelled, right? Like a religious group is a particularly useful one. They may have lots of, notice it says religious sect here, right? So a small a smaller group of practitioners of a religion who may have quite regular interactions with one another, and that makes them have more in common with one another than a soft-shelled group, such as people in a city like London or New York, right? Where in terms of London, we can recognize a London accent often, although the people may be quite different in many other ways, right? They may have different religions, they may be of different age, and so on, but they have something in common that makes them feel like members of a community. A speech community is made up of individuals who regard themselves as speaking the same language. It need have no other defining attributes. Corder is using a very loose definition here, but that I think does capture that idea that there's something, that you can have a place like New York or London or other major cosmopolitan cities where you got all kinds of people with all kinds of backgrounds, but they do have certain features that make them similar enough, right? Londoners will not be confused with people from Birmingham or people from Liverpool linguistically, because there are enough differences that set them off one from another, the London speech community from the Liverpool speech community, and so on. Community of practice has that element of practice in the title, doing something, right? Not practice here as in getting better, I'm practicing tennis so I can get better, but practice as in the GP's, the doctor's practice, as in where she or he does his or her work. Community of practice, people who come together around a mutual engagement in an endeavor. People are doing something. Over time, the theory here, the person's name does not appear in the first citation. The theory here is that over time, people who share a practice, who are trying to do something together, that they become similar in, as it says here, beliefs, values, even power relations. But for our purposes, ways of talking is the particularly noteworthy one. The three sub-elements of this, in order to be defined as a community of practice, the members must have regular interaction, right? So people are doing things, you're not a community of practice with someone you meet once, right? It's with people you meet regularly over time and develop a relationship with and start to do those things, talk similarly, perhaps even share similar beliefs. Joint enterprise, it's people who are trying to do something together, right? And so that's a key element, right? It's not just people who spend time together, but this idea that they're doing something together, learning together, working together, trying to create something together. We'll see some examples in a minute. These are just the theoretical underpinnings of the name, the phrase community of practice. And this shared repertoire, they have things that they do both in terms of physical behavior, but especially in our case, linguistic behavior. They have a repertoire, an assortment of tools that they share and that they therefore use in a way that sets them off from other groups of people. Similar gestures even, if you want to include paralinguistic behavior. Now, a very interesting example that was given to me of this was a student like you who was doing this sociolinguistics module, and she talked about her dance troupe. These were people who got together to dance. They weren't really learning to dance. They were just people who liked to dance. They'd meet once or twice a week, and they would dance together, and they'd have different types of dance, and it was purely a matter of enjoying dancing. So they found, though, that over time there were problems with a new member would join and would come to dance, and sometimes there'd be a problem where someone would ask someone else to dance. Shall we dance for this number? And if the person being asked didn't want to and said no, it could lead to problems, right? A asks B to dance, B says no thank you. A says, but you just danced with C or with D, why won't you dance with me? And it led to some tension. So they had to develop, over time they developed practices to take care of this potential problem. You know, the people weren't here to meet partners, to get a girlfriend, a boyfriend, husband, wife, right? They were just there to dance, most of them. So over time, they developed an unwritten code of behavior, an unwritten practice for their community, which was that if someone asks you to dance and you say no, that's the end of it. You're not allowed, according to their practices. You could still do it, but according to their practices, if you ask someone to dance and she or he says no, you have to just leave it at that to avoid going into these problematic discussions of why not. So the core members, those who are already in the group, over time, new members would join, peripheral members would join, and if as they learned these practices, they may themselves become core members. You can really see that idea of core and peripheral if you watch television dramas or films that involve the police, right? You've got the police officers talk like police, they dress like police, they behave like police. If it's to be an accurate depiction on television, at least, right? They have to believably behave and talk like police in order for you to suspend disbelief and join in the process of enjoying the drama. But then the criminals and the reporters, they're not core members of the police community, but they are peripheral members. They understand a lot about police, about the way police officers act, about the way police officers talk, in order to integrate themselves with the police. A newspaper reporter will never become a police officer, but they'll use similar words. They'll talk about perps instead of perpetrators, and unsubs instead of unknown suspects, and so on, right? They use the language, the jargon of the police as peripheral members. And they don't have the full joint enterprise. They're not, the reporters aren't there to capture criminals, but they're part of the process of legal legal policing of criminal behavior, and that they report on it. Finally, for our purposes, this is probably the smallest in terms of numbers, the discourse community, but because of the nature of this assessment and you as students, sometimes you may find that discourse community is the term best applied to a group of people you are researching. Largely, this is focused on academics, right? A discourse community is a group of people with a scientific specialty who share language, beliefs, and practices, right? They have public goals to advance their field of knowledge. Let's learn more about medicine. Let's learn more about psychology, what have you. You participate through conferences, through publishing. You read each other's work and comment on each other's work, and so on, right? Community-specific genres. Academics have special language for their field. They use citations and references. They have low-frequency specialized lexis, and so on. Discourse community is very specific, right? For the most part, academics or researchers of some type. So keep those three in mind as the three main types of group that we're talking about for this assessment: speech community, community of practice, discourse community. For your assessment, read about those, write your own summaries of what they mean, and then follow the rest of the procedure in terms of guessing, hypothesizing about the group of people you want to research, which of those three labels best applies to them. Thank you.